I know it's time for me to have the jerk vacation. Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer for recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to This Week in D&D, where I break down the news surrounding Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition in the tabletop RPG industry. This is the this week for July 3rd, where I wasn't here last week because I had to do my review of Dragon Delves, so hopefully you've all checked that out. And then I did my ranking video earlier this week, so hopefully you've checked that out as well. So you can ask me anything about D&D Dragon Delves, because now I know all the things. But yeah, I'm on vacation after today, starting it's the July 4th weekend. So yeah, it's unfortunate because we just had the week off 2 weeks ago, but it's summer and that happens. So I'm the jerk with the jerk vacation. But you've got lots of stuff for me throughout the week, right? I just said you've got the ranking video. I'm doing This Week in D&D right now, and then later today, literally in like an hour or two, you all will see the upload of our latest episode of Dragonlance from the Patreon D&D campaign. So can't complain too much. All right. So because we didn't do this last week, we've got extra news to talk about, but I'm still going to try to keep this to in 1 hour episode. First thing we've got is the Unearthed Arcana, a new Unearthed Arcana specifically for Arcane Subclasses. This one adds 9 subclasses. Most of them are updates from existing subclasses that were either in the extra books or in other Unearthed Arcanas, but it also adds 2 new ones. I haven't actually looked at this video yet. I don't know how long it is. We can maybe check out a little bit of it, but I will we'll check out the actual PDF here in a second. All right, don't give me like unlicensed music.
We really to present magical, wondrous options for
right, so this is an 11-minute video, so it's a little bit long for
here. We
here.
wanted to provide a wide array of ways that characters could use arcane magic and explore arcane magic and just feel like powerful conduits of
that's what we need is more arcane magic. All of our There's already so much of that.
We have 7 subclasses.
I get why they want to definitely like shore up the rest of the wizard stuff though. Yeah, so it includes the wizard, conjurer, enchanter, necromancer, and transmuter. So the other classes that don't exist in the player's handbook, right? The warlock hexblade, which I always confuse with the Pact of the Blade, which was introduced in one of the extra books, I think. Fighter, arcane archer, which also was existed in one of the extra books in the 2014 version. The arcana domain for cleric, and then the 2, I believe, completely new ones is the monk tattooed warrior and the sorcerer ancestral sorcery, which is specifically if you got your magic from a just some ancestor in your own bloodline, which yeah, that actually feels like a really obvious like way you would get your magic, to where I'm surprised it took us this long to come up with it basically. So I figure for the purposes of this just news highlight, we'll maybe just go over the brand new ones, I think, instead of like all 9 of them. But because a lot of them have been given updates and changes in their transition from the original incarnation into the 2024 edition, which seems nice. Arcane Archer specifically, I'd really love to play. I've always had an idea for if I ever get to play a long form player character again, a character that's based on Barry Pepper's character from Saving Private Ryan. Somebody who's just like a really cool marksman who's like very stoic and he was praying even. So I thought it'd be cool to like pick a god and have that be like you're just you owe like everything to that particular god in the D&D pantheon or something. So an Arcane Archer would be a really cool one to translate that to. Plus it's like the the maneuvers. It's got the different abilities you can pick that allow you to kind of define your specific skills, which is pretty nice. Although I wish the arcane shot was more powerful, because it stays a D6 all the way until level 10. I think this is actually an improvement, but I do wish that it scaled up a little bit quicker than that. But otherwise, I like the idea for that class. So anyway, going to the new ones, we've got the monk tattooed warrior, which is another awesome kind of obvious magical archetype, I guess. In fact, wasn't it what was that Wace Hickman series? God, I loved it back in the day. I need to reread it. The Deathgate Cycle, is that the one I'm thinking of, where one of the characters, one of the main protagonists has like magic tattoos? God, it's been forever since I read it, but I remember really liking that series. Anyway, this is the way it works is every time you would get your class feature, you get a new set of tattoos or one tattoo that then gives you some kind of magical ability. But it does the thing that I like a lot of subclasses do, which is lets you further customize. So already picking a subclass allows you to kind of specialize, your character in a certain way. And I really like ones that, in addition to that, you get to, I guess, further specialize by picking from a list of features, which I think is really cool. And you feel just more, personalized, I guess, in that way. So, just like the Arcane Archer, the Battle Master thing, or like any Warlock where you get to pick and choose from a list of like features that are built in there instead of just automatically getting everything. In this case, you get to pick your tattoos that all give you those certain abilities. So at level 3, you get Beast tattoos, which a lot of them give you free cantrips, which, are just kind of flavor text, honestly, I think, for a lot of... And none of these are damage cantrips, from what I can tell. Message, Mending, Spare the Dying, Dancing Lights. But if 2 of them give you pretty cool abilities, which if you were min-maxing would probably be the ones that you would want to pick, Crane and Spider, because you're using Flurry of Blows a lot as a monk, right? That's like kind of your signature feature for most of your monk career. And Crane says whenever you miss a creature, when you're attacking with Flurry of Blows, you then have advantage on attack rolls for your remaining unarmed strikes with Flurry of Blows. So I guess it's only useful if you miss that first one. And then the Spider says if you hit a creature with an attack from Flurry of Blows, and that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. So it's kind of a nice little additional debuff. Those don't cost any extra things, which is pretty nice. Oh, I forgot to mention, not only you cantrips, a lot of them do give you first level spells, but they do cost 1 focus point. So like you can, getting Disguise Self is actually really fun as a monk. You can do all kinds of shenanigans with that for 1 focus point. False Life, I guess, gives you some temporary hit points. Long Strider, you can move a little better. Gaining Blind Sight whenever you take Patient Defense or Step of the Wind is also kind of interesting. So a lot of cool features, and that's very front-loaded. That's level 3, right? Level 6, you can pick one that basically gives you the ability to cast a 2nd level spell for 2 focus points. Find Traps is kind of not great, but Misty Step is amazing for any fucking person, let alone although Monk might be the least one who needs Misty Step just because their movement abilities are already so good. Invisibility, also an amazing spell, unless the Restoration is pretty solid. So those are really cool features. Level 11 gives you the ability to gain resistance to a damage type and advantage on a certain save, but both they're paired together in a certain way. You can't pick and choose. It also takes 3 focus points, which is a little bit expensive, and it takes a full magic action. It does last for a minute, but it would feel kind of bad to do this in combat. But maybe not, because, I don't know, monks do have some good bonus actions. You could still attack as a bonus action, I guess. But, like, so you could take the Storm, which gives you resistance to lightning damage and advantage on dex saves. Volcano gives you resistance to fire damage and advantage on strength saves. So you can't, like, say, oh, I want resistance to fire damage and advantage on dex saves, so I'm good against Fireball. That doesn't work like that. You have to pick one or the other. Also, you would have to just straight up pick the magic tattoo. I guess I'm saying this wrong. You don't get to just choose one of these. You'd have to pick that tattoo, and then that tattoo gives you that feature. So that's a bit tricky because you'd have to be like, well, what are we going to come across in this campaign that's probably the most like, how useful is it to get acid damage, versus fire or cold? But maybe you want to shore up, you probably don't need to shore up your wisdom. Maybe you want to shore up your strength or dex saves or con saves. So you'd have to pick one ahead of time. So that's a little stressful, I think, is trying to pick which one of those that you want to go through. Level 17 gives you some crazy good abilities, but also it's level 17. Like, how often, honestly, are a lot of us going to make it up to that level? But, like, straight up, just gain a fly speed of 10 feet and permanently hover. That's pretty insane. I'm not even sure magic users gain that ability as, like, a permanent feature. Just permanent fly speed and hovering. Also, casting Counterspell, Blink, Mirror Image whenever you use Flurry of Blows or Step of the Wind is kind of cool. Guardian Agate gives you like a self-resurrect ability, so I think it's really cool. If I were reviewing it, I would give a thumbs up to the tattoo feature. I think it's awesome. It would be nice if you could maybe pick and choose, like if you wanted to say any of the previous tattoos you wanted to pick instead of like the current one here. Like if I want to pick like a nature tattoo because it didn't really fit my character, like let me pick an extra beast or celestial tattoo. for balance reasons, I don't think that would unbalance things at all. I think that'd be a cool way of unlocking the subclass even further. And then we've got the Ancestral Sorcery Sorcerer, which, as I mentioned, is about you're channeling the magic of your ancestors. And this one feels like a sort of a cleric hybrid subclass, and also one that doesn't necessarily focus on combat, which is interesting because I would think that a sorcerer in particular is like a wizard who focuses on combat. So you're taking a step back from that. However, it does help you out of combat. Like, for example, you can add your charisma modifier to all of your intelligence checks. That's pretty huge because a lot of parties are probably deficient in intelligence unless you have a wizard or artificer or one of those specific, like, what am I thinking of? The Eldritch Knight, like the specific subclasses that care about intelligence, I guess. The spells seem like there are a lot of cleric spells. Spiritual weapons, Spirit Guardians is great. Command, guidance, protection from evil and good. You also just gain advantage on the influence action because your like ancestor appears in a spectral haze around you. At level 6, whenever you use your innate sorcery feature, which is that special buff that sorcerers get now in 2024 edition, where you get like a +1 on your attack rolls and to your saving throw, the DC to your saving throws, you can now cast a free counter spell or dispel magic. You can only get that freebie once per long rest, but when you do cast either one, they're even more powerful. So counterspell forces disadvantage on the save against it, and then dispel magic gives you advantage to end the ongoing spell effect, because both of those work slightly differently, I believe, than how they used to in 2014. So basically just more powerful versions of that, although you do have to have your innate sorcery feature on. Level 14 gives you an AoE around you. Also, whenever your innate sorcery feature is active, that forces anybody who's there. How long does it last? I guess the innate sorcery itself lasts a certain amount of time, which I forget is like a minute long. I didn't actually look that one up again. Whenever they enter the turn or start their turn there, they have to make a charisma save, or they have the prone or frightened condition. That seems pretty dang useful. Although, interestingly enough, there's friendly fire here, isn't it? Whenever a creature... Oh, it says you can force that creature. Okay. I almost think it'd be more cool if you, like, couldn't quite control. But it does say you can force the creature, so it is up to you on which creatures are prone or frightened. Like, stay away from me. My ancestors pissed off at everybody. Level 14 is pretty also boring, but really powerful. Taking damage can't break your concentration on sorcerer spells. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it's boring because it's not like a new feature you get, but that's very powerful. Because I think that's the only way you can lose concentration other than you deciding you want to lose concentration, right? I mean, because dispel magic is a different thing. So I think it's just damage that... I guess if somehow something were to make you incapacitated that didn't involve doing damage, that would break your concentration. So there you go. I've thought of it. So yeah, those are the two new ones, and then there's a bunch of new revisions and stuff when it comes to all these other ones, which I didn't honestly go through too much. All the different wizard abilities, and there's the warlock hexblade stuff. So it seems like there's good stuff in here. I don't know what we're getting. A lot of Unearthed Arcana. I don't think we've seen yet what the next big book is. Is there going to be like a Sword Coast type book again? That you know, basically, what's the next Xanathars? What's the first like 2024 edition of the, hey, this is the expansion that includes more subclasses. We're getting Forge the Artificer, I know, but that includes the full class plus subclasses for that one. I don't think we're gonna get subclasses for other classes, right? I haven't looked at Forge the Artificer. Hopefully I'll get early access to that one like I did with Dragon Delves. That would be nice to be able to report on that. So yeah, it seems like good stuff in here. Unearthed Arcana, Arcane Subclasses. All right, moving on. We've got more stuff from D&D Beyond, which is basically they're just doing more Dragon Delves hype. But I thought this was a really fun article that was specifically aimed at player characters who are planning on playing Dragon Delves as a campaign. So basically you're like looking at what does a dragon themed character look like. And I really appreciate that they're they're treating Dragon Delves as like an event, which I mean, I guess they have in the past, right? Like they, they do a lot of different, I don't know, releases or blog posts or something, articles about whatever new current adventure book was out. So I appreciate that it's not just like throwing it out in the wilds like I feel like they've done with some of them. Instead, this is like, no, we're actually going to be like releasing all these different little articles and stuff that really explores this content. So that's a thumbs up for me. This one involves what backgrounds are relevant to dragons, what species would be relevant. So it's aimed at primarily at player characters, subclasses, for example. Like it breaks down like every single, like how could you put every background in here? Like criminal, you've stolen from a dragon's horde. Charlatan, you sold fake dragon scales. Acolyte, you worship the temple of a draconic god. Soldier, you're the sole survivor of a dragon's assault on your platoon. You can change anything to make it dragon related, which is nice. Obviously, it says dragonborn species, the most straightforward. Aasimar could have inherited a spark from Bahamut. Your dwarf's ancestors could have been chased from their kingdom by a greedy red dragon. Hello, Lord of the Rings, I guess. Goliath, I like that it points out Goliaths are actually relevant because Goliaths are descended from giant kin who have warred with dragons for eons. That's a big point of Storm King's Thunder, actually, I believe. Subclasses, elemental affinity, I guess. Character trained with dragons heard their powers in some way may look to all these different things. It does actually mention a lot of ones that aren't in the 2024 edition, which is interesting. Way of the Ascendant Dragon, Monk, Drake, Warden, Ranger, Draconic. Actually, Draconic Sorcery, I think, is in 2024. Psionic Powers, those have interaction with Gem Dragons. Okay, this one's kind of bullshit because Gem Dragons are not in Dragon Delves. It sticks to the Chromatic and Metallic Dragons, so I don't know about that one. In Vengeance Art, characters looking to slay dragons. Be the Hunter Ranger with the Vengeance Paladin, etc. Feats, there's Draconic Feats from Fizzbands you could use. Hunter Slayers, Durable, Sharpshooter, Warcaster, sure. Defending, and then it actually goes into like tactics. It's like, don't let them fly. Use defense, which is funny. Resist their damage type, so know ahead of time what dragon you're going to fight, and you can definitely have that kind of resistance because you know what their breath weapon is going to be. Yeah, this is the one. Keep them grounded. Try to use speed-reducing conditions. So it's really funny. It gets into like the tactics of it too, and then like how to interact with dragons. Sometimes they're friends or allies. Know which kind of dragons are hostile to you. A lot of little D tables. I guess these actually might be DM focused in a little bit. Well, not necessarily. It's your connection to dragons. You made a deal with a dragon for wisdom or magic. You've never met a dragon. You were raised near a dragon's territory. You accidentally hatched a dragon egg. Now the wormling is trying to outgrow your barn. That's kind of cute. DM, can I start with a dragon wormling? What? That'd be a good plot point, though. Gosh. In fact, if you haven't read my Dragon Delves review, there's a part where they actually do tie the campaign together by giving you a dragon egg, and you're supposed to seep that dragon egg in all the different hordes, and then it does a big narrative important thing to defeat the final boss, who unfortunately doesn't show up obviously until the very last campaign because they're each separate modules. But man, it would be really fun to give the party like a little baby dragon and have that dragon like eventually grow up to even like a wormling, and it would be like an existing character, but it's like a child, intellect and emotional state and everything. Like that would be an interesting hook for sure, because powerful but maybe like easily manipulated or something. So yeah, I thought that was pretty nice. And then there's also some more tips on Dragon Delves, specifically about how to run the solo adventures. So this is a big different thing, I believe, with this new adventure book, in that some of the adventure modules are specifically designed to play with a solo player. That's a bit of a misnomer, by the way, because there's technically 2 players, right? Like, the DM is kind of a player also in the whole thing. I get the nomenclature. We're talking about a solo player character. I guess we usually refer to players and dungeon masters, but there is such a thing as like one person. It's almost like you're playing a choose your own adventure novel. Like you're literally playing by yourself. Like I think those exist out there as well. But solo player character, yeah. Anyway, there are 3 adventures among the 10 in Dragon Delves that are, I will say, they are not necessarily designed for a solo player, but they have been flagged for solo play because they are much less combat dependent. Especially, and they actually range in the different tiers of play. There's a level 3 one, I believe, which is one of my favorite ones. The level 7, and then like a level 12. The level 12 one is weirdly the least combat heavy. You can play that whole adventure without any combat whatsoever. And then the book introduces a special buff that you're supposed to give the solo player called like the Lone Champion buff or something. These tips, this whole page, by the way, goes over like, the adventure should have certain skills that tie to that adventure. And I mean, it's the usual skills you think are important, like some kind of persuasion. Like basically they really need to be a charisma based character. And then certain classes are going to be better for solo play. Like a wizard is going to have a rough fucking time, frankly, versus really any of the charisma classes. Like a bard would be a really good solo character because they've got their spells and they've got their charisma. What does it talk about? Yeah, paladin. It specifically calls out paladin, bard, or warlock. Offers a strong mix of survivability, magic, and social prowess. Yeah, because they're all fucking charisma-based classes that have multiple abilities. Those are just good classes in general. Classes also reward investing in charisma, which amplifies your skills. Yeah, basically says those can all be good things. Rogue could be really good if you want to specifically stealth around, but I also feel like a solo rogue player, like in a very specific heist format, could be interesting, but also you're just gonna like skip content, like, and that's what your character's gonna be good at, is like skipping content. So that seems kind of weird. It mentions the fact that you should have access to healing or give the player like a lot of healing potions or things. So this buff that it introduces in Dragon Delves is called Blessing of the Lone Champion, and this is the one that I talked about a lot in my review. It gives them heroic inspiration after every single rest, including short rests, and every time they roll initiative. Which is fine. Basically, the DM is not rewarding inspiration. Instead, you're just automatically getting it just about every chance you could get. So that helps you succeed in a lot of ways. You also get this huge block of temporary hit points. 10 times your level. Per rest. Not necessarily per rest, sorry. Per every time you level, and obviously when you first start the game and you receive it. So basically, whenever you start a new level, like if you're level 3, you get 30 temporary hit points. That could very well be more actual hit points than you have. So I had a bit of a problem with it. I get the balance. Obviously, you don't want to kill your solo player and you want to give them a chance, because if they go down, you're fucked, right? Like there's no helping hand. Like it's game over, man. What are you playing, a roguelike? Like what are we doing here? Which is partly the problem of doing a solo adventure, I guess. My solution, which I mentioned in my review, was like, well, what about the sidekick system? Like they introduced sidekicks in, I think, Tasha's, and they were, basically the solo player is also given access to very simplistic, like the scout stat block or something, where they just don't have too much they can do, but maybe they have a few other kind of skills that you could have them roll. Like you could tell your scout to go, use their perception to look ahead or something. And then you've also got more tactics involved. So you've got that action economy kind of builds back up if you've got other characters. So you're basically turning it into like a video game. Like if you're playing Solasta or Baldur's Gate or something and you control multiple heroes, but in this case, you're not controlling full heroes with all the different things a normal player character has, because I do think that would be too much. At that point, it's almost two DMs playing with each other, the amount of content you've got. But I think the sidekick system is a nice compromise, and then your sidekicks could die. You'd have to worry about them in terms of helping them up, or you could have them roll death saves, I guess, and they can get you up as well. So that would be my solution, is I would give the player, like, and plus they can choose sidekicks that would be able to complement whatever they play. So now if they want to play a wizard, you can have your sidekick be, a priest and a fighter or something. So I don't know. I think that's more interesting from a tactical standpoint, in terms of pure combat, than it is just giving the player a huge balloon of extra hit points, right? Because if I'm balancing things on my end as the DM side, although I do this, the easiest, most boring thing I can do is just up the hit points. But, I mean, that can be useful if I want them to hang around a lot longer, but it's the players that are then still in the combat doing things. But I don't know, if I'm just buffing up the players' hit points, I guess I need to see it in action, but I wasn't terribly impressed with this solution when I first read it, and I actually included it as a con in my review of the adventure because I wanted them to do something more, I guess, with the solo player thing. And I didn't realize that was even a popular, such a popular thing that Wizards was like, yeah, let's make some of these have these extra. So, and again, they're not. None of the adventures are, don't look at it and say, oh well, so 3 of these 10 are solo adventures. They're not going to be useful for my party. That's not at all what they've done. They've just said that, hey, here, 3 of these adventures you could potentially play as a solo player using this buff adjustment. And the reason that they've there's no other scaling whatsoever, by the way. And then the reason they pick those 3 is because those 3 are the least like hack and slash dungeon crawly of the 3. Although Baker's doesn't, I think there's a lot of good combat opportunities in there that I would certainly use. Oh, look, there it goes. Now it says add companion NPCs. Boom. Thank you. You actually say that here. I don't think they said that in the book. Including DM-controlled adventure might take away from the fact that solo player is the star of the show. I disagree, but there are other options. Perhaps the solo adventurer has a mentor with whom they can discuss their plans, but is unable to join them on their quest. Likewise, you could give your hero the Find Familiar spell and the ability to cast it without expanding a spell slot once per long rest. So they always have an animal companion to keep them company. Or they can play a class that gives them Find Familiar legitimately. So yeah, it mentions it as like a single sentence, but even then it says might take away the solo player as the star of the show. I don't know. I'm used to playing a lot of tactical RPGs where I control a full party. Like I'm still the star because I'm controlling multiple characters, but I'm only going to role play as my central character. I mean, like every game gives you companions. Right? Like, every fantasy RPG is not, I guess, yeah, but even something like Skyrim, like, you can have a companion with you. Fuck you, Wizards. Companion's the way to go. That's what I would do. Introduced in Dragons of Icespire, I think. Okay, maybe. I thought they were also in one of the fish. I thought it was, I keep saying Tosh's is what it's from, but honestly, I haven't cracked my book open in a while. Sidekick is my usual way of dealing with solo adventures. Yeah. Look at possibly getting the equivalent of legendary actions. Now, see, that would be interesting also, Sylvan. That would be very interesting, because that helps their action economy back up and allows them to potentially, do things more during the round, especially if it's one solo player versus, like, 4 goblins or something. That could be really interesting. Or something like, hey, you get an extra reaction or something. Like, something that actually rebalances things in their favor that's not just a bunch of hit points, so... yeah, I think there's different things that can be done for that. What else can we talk about this week? The Labyrinth book from Kobold Press. This is a upcoming, if it's a source book, I guess it's a source book that is designed for 5th edition and Kobold Press's own Tales of the Valiant campaign setting. This is like a giant, I guess, Underdark that connects all these worlds together. Let's see if this... I can actually open this tab up. Anyway, there's a preview that you can look at, the sneak peek that's free on Kobold Press's website. Gives you a sneak glimpse of the details and tools you'll find inside for the game. Learn the mind-bending structure and distinct people found across the labyrinth. Meet the Concordans, a faction of mortal servants serving the celestial realms, and use the Celestial Pact Warlock subclass. So the full Labyrinth World book is... I don't know when it's going to come out, though. When is it going to come out? Okay, it's actually a full adventure path. Oh, no, my bad. It's the Labyrinth Adventures. Okay, so there's a different one that's actually the adventure path. Adventure campaign, level 1 through 8, called Labyrinth Adventures. This is the actual source book. A realm of heroes stretching across infinity, the labyrinth connects fantastic worlds with hidden pathways and roads visible to only a few. Between these paths, worlds rise and falls. Heroes forge their destinies, and the all-consuming void seeks a way in. The Labyrinth World Book is a complete guide to the Labyrinth campaign overlay, allowing adventurers and game masters the freedom to travel to any campaign setting. Within this book, you'll find resources for the ultimate world-hopping adventure. So it attempts to... come up with like a physical realm. I guess the Infinite Staircase would be an example of that. Radiant Citadel kind of did that. Planescape does that, where it's like, how do we connect all these different worlds together. This includes 10 new subclasses for the Tales of the Valiant role-playing game. I assume you can get the 5th edition also, because I think they do both of them. The Powers of the Void, the Labyrinth at your fingertips, harness 5 new styles of magic. A gazetteer to the known worlds and key locations of the Labyrinth, including over 50 worlds submitted by Kobold Press fans and supporters. Dozens of unique factions, gods, items, and monsters to populate your next journey through the 10,000 worlds. So it might be a fun excuse to tie that stuff together. Like Vecna Eve of Ruin does that, right? There's some multiversal campaign or anthology stuff that does it. Maybe this would be a good supplement for that. I guess it's out now. Maybe it's the news article is that there's a sneak peek on it. I don't know. I was alerted to this as being a new thing. Maybe it's the sneak peek that's new, that you can get like a demo version of this at the Kobold Press website. So that's Labyrinth Worldbook, and then there's also Labyrinth Adventures. I have like 10,000 tabs open, by the way. Which features... Okay, I love Kobold Press, by the way. One of my favorite third-party publishers. I love the way that they do their campaigns. I mean, you can see our whole Empire of the Ghouls campaign is all Kobold Press, and I was very impressed with that one. You can see it looks really good. They've got great art. Their stuff tends to be a little more combat heavy, but if you like more kind of maybe older school where it's a little more hack and slashy, and there's like, you know, a bunch of tables for monsters and stuff, and you like a lot of custom monsters, for example, that are not just from the monster manual, then this one has a lot of that in there. There's 12 adventures found in this book for characters level 1 through 8. Okay, so I guess it's more of a anthology than it is a campaign. Experience them as separate quests, easily brought into your game, or string them together as an epic journey across multiple worlds in search of a shattered portal key. Okay, so it also is an option to put them together with campaigns. Climb aboard a runaway train, hurtling between worlds in search of its lost inventor. Pull off the ultimate heist and snatch an acorn of the world tree from a devil's hall. Battle against a void cult to prevent countless worlds from utter ruin. What a fun job to describe a single adventure. To describe an adventure in a single exciting sentence, by the way. Enter the halls of a dreaming god, confront powerful void angels, and more. It's nice. I'm hyped. So that's Labyrinth Adventures, and there's the Labyrinth World Book, and then you can get a sneak peek of the World Book at the Kobold Press website. It does say it's specifically for Tales of the Valiant, but I think that's fully compatible with 5th edition as well. Okay, we've got some board game stuff to talk about. Horrified Dungeons and Dragons is coming out, I think, in August. The Horrified series, by the way, has been around for years. This is a co-op board game where players play as like investigators or heroes, and there's monsters that you play against, and your characters are moving around a board, they're collecting items, and you use those items to thwart and defeat the monsters that you're playing against. I believe Horrified D&D is the first officially licensed Horrified game we've had, and it's also the 5th one in the series. Which, by the way, I'm not I am biased here. I have a working relationship with Ravensburger, the publisher, and I have reviewed, I believe, just about all of the Horrified games. I have them all on my shelf. There's 4 of them. This is the 5th one. The first 2 are compatible with each other, and then the second 2 are compatible only with each other because they introduced a new mechanic, layers, that make them not completely compatible with the earlier ones, but are their own thing. And then this one also, I think, uses layers, so would be compatible with the other 2. The Greek mythology one, by the way, I think is my favorite because it fits all the theme and stuff very well. I actually wasn't a big fan of the most recent one, which is the Cthulhu one, which felt like an obvious theme for like a monster stuff with investigators, only because Cthulhu himself was overly complicated, and they added like multiple stages and had this like epic little final thing, and it was just a little too much for what the game complexity should be, which is something I can play with my oldest kid, at least, my young teenager. So it's not it's not a hugely complex game, but it is a lot of fun. Horrified Dungeons and Dragons as a series, and then Horrified D&D adds monsters from D&D. So let me ask you all real quick. You may have already looked it up and may already know, but there are 4 monsters included in this game. Which monsters do you think that they picked out of all of the iconic monsters of Dungeons and Dragons, which you probably already see some of these and can already know, but which 4 monsters do you think were included in this game? If you had to pick 4 monsters from Dungeons and Dragons to include in a game series that's never been about D&D before, but is about powerful monsters that you have to stop, which monsters would you pick? Because I had a guess back when they first teased this, and they didn't announce the monsters yet, and I was not very correct. And I know D&D, obviously, so I was a little bit surprised about which ones got included. Beholder, Bodak's interesting choice. Dragon and Lich. Okay, those are good guesses. Beholder, Dragon, Lich. Yep. Those all seem very iconic. I mean, yeah, the Beholder seems... I feel like even people that don't... So I guess the test would be if you were to show a monster to somebody and you'd be like, do you know what, like, thing this is from? And they could say, yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. Dragon would be tricky because Dragons, obviously, D&D doesn't own the dragon. But Dragon is in the fucking name and is important. But Beholder, I think... I almost feel like that one is like a universal, like, oh yeah, it's something to do with D&D. Aboleth, that's an interesting choice. Very, very spooky monster. What else? What are the 4 choices here? They all have their own little minis and stuff. I can show you. This is, well, this kind of reveals it right here a little bit. You can see. But anyway, it's coming August 10th. $29.99, appears at Target first. Like I said, I'm totally biased in really liking Ravensburger as a publisher. They always make really good quality content, even if I'm not a huge fan of all of the Horrified games, and they all definitely play very similar to each other. This one does introduce a D20 and involves you actually having to roll the die, and then your characters, I believe, actually are, yeah, D&D Adventure. Can I blow this up? There we go. So this is kind of cute too. Instead of playing random like people, you actually play character classes, and the classes all have very specific abilities and the way that they roll the dice and stuff, which that part's a lot different than the other Horrified games. So I think this could be a really fine matchup between them. And maybe even actually adds a little bit to the complexity in a good way to this series. So Bard, Fighter, Cleric, Rogue, and Wizard are the 5 different options. I believe maybe it does play to 5 players then. I forget how many you can play, and you can play it solo also. I think you have to play with at least 2 characters, but you can just all the information is public, so you can just play multiple characters if you want to play solo. And then if it's like the other Horrified games, you pick 2, or actually, sorry, you pick as many monsters as you want, but that's the difficulty level basically. I think if you play against 2 monsters, that's like a normal difficulty, and then 3 is hard, and then 4 is like insane. Purple Worm, Mind Flayer is a good one. Yep. Beholder's a 100% D&D creation. I think you're correct on that. To where they've like, I think that isn't Beholder even like trademarked. To where, I mean, you can use like the concept of a floating mouth with eyes, but I don't think you can call it a Beholder. I think that might literally be trademarked by Wizards. These are great guesses, by the way. So Beholder, Bugbear, Troll, Mummy. I don't know if I would do that as D&D. That seems a little more. Of course, Dragon is the same way, where it's like spread across multiple fantasy things. Mind Flayer is a great guess, though. Purple Worm, Fighting Man, Elf, Flump, and Werejackal. All right, so a lot of you had some really good guesses. Here's the answer, which we'll do dramatically via the trailer here that does include fun little minis. Beholder is number 1. Number 2 is Mimic. Isn't that interesting? Sorry, I should turn down the music. I thought that was a very interesting choice. And Displacer Beast, number 3. Like, yeah, it's a monster, but iconic? Red Dragon, specifically, is number 4. Makes sense. And they've got, like, a big layer thing going on. I really hope that's not licensed music they're using. So, yeah, those are your 4. Is the Beholder, the Mimic, the Displacer Beast, and the Dragon. So they didn't necessarily go with, like, intelligent, conquering creatures. I'm with some of you. I would say, like, how is Mind Flayer not one of the 4? If I were doing it, I think I would say I agree with Beholder and I think you kind of have to do the red dragon. And then I would do Mind Flayer as number 3 and Lich as number 4. Like, the fact that you don't have an undead in here, like, come on, and Lich is such a good undead one. And then, I mean, Mind Flayer, it's so cool looking, so, like, iconic. Made so big with Baldur's Gate recently, also. They also, the one thing I can understand is that maybe they wanted not all of them to be, like, super strong. Maybe some were easier than others. Because, like, a Mimic is not on the same level as a Red Dragon, right? And have different kind of mechanics, I guess, too. So maybe a Mimic, like, you know, I haven't seen the game, but maybe a Mimic is some way of, like, there's, like, multiple layers on the board, and you have to keep uncovering it till you discover the Mimic, kind of a thing. Displacer Beast could obviously use, like, illusions to trick you, and maybe it's just good at, you know, stealthing around and stuff. I guess they're both hard to find in that way. So, interesting, right? So, I'm interested for sure. I love the Horrified series. You know, I look at my shelf and I'm like, I do not absolutely at all need a new Horrified game. I've got way more Horrified content than I could ever want. And yet, it's D&D. So, like, of course I'm going to play this game. Hopefully, and I've already been in talks with Ravensburger. I'm very much hoping I can do a full early review whenever they can ship it out, and I will cover it here on the channel as well. So, Horrified, Dungeons and Dragons. I know Owlbear would have been a good one. Owlbear is interesting because the rest of these, I think, would all be dangerous creatures, and Owlbear is obviously, it's dangerous, but I think is more of a neutral dangerous, if that makes sense. Versus the rest of these, I feel like are always encountered hostile. I guess Mimic could be kind of a goofy encounter too, not necessarily hostile, but I think they're usually hostile. But like Owlbear, I don't know, you could have a friendly Owlbear or something. They're just, but Owlbear is a good one. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to choose 4. You could make a whole nother Horrified game with a whole nother 4 creatures. That's how many, I think, iconic creatures are. But I was not right when I guessed my creatures. I'll say that when it came to the things. I basically said, I think Beholder, they'd already teased that was in it. And then I said Dragon is probably in it, but then I mentioned, I think, things like Owlbear, and then Mind Flayer, Lich. I mean, you could do like a vampire, although that's also kind of similar to Mummy, where it's like, everybody's got that. All right, for another board game, I don't know anything about this one other than I saw it's brand new, I think. It's called Dungeons and Dragons Builders of Baldur's Gate. It's coming out later this year, and it's a full-on ass board game from WizKids, who does a lot of the miniature work. I honestly don't know anything about this one. I was looking at other stuff and I was like, wait, what is this? There's another D&D game coming out. So this is an example. You know, there's like 2 camps of D&D board games, right? There's the ones that are like direct. They try to emulate the D&D experience in some kind of board game format. They're like an adventure thing. You're putting down tiles and you're moving your mini around. You know, that's a whole genre of games, which they don't actually do too much of now. They used to do more of. And then there's also games that are basically more normal modern board games that just have a D&D flavor. So Lords of Waterdeep is a good example of that, which is a really popular game. Gosh, what's the other one that I have that's... Tyrants of the Underdark is like a area control deck builder game. There's one of them called like Vault of the Dragon. That's what I was trying to look for on my shelf. Which is you're controlling multiple factions of the city, I think, and you're trying to get into the Dragon Vault thing, and it's another kind of area control, but with heroes, I believe, using adventures and dice and everything. Anyway, those don't try to emulate at all the D&D experience, but they are fun board games that have the D&D theme, I guess. Some of them are more pasted on, and others are just really cool exploration of that. I think this one is definitely the latter. This is meant to be a city building game. I guess let's read the description. In Dungeons and Dragons, Builders of Baldur's Gate, a city-building game from acclaimed designer Matthew Dunstan, you are the head of a powerful family in the iconic city. You grow your prestige by building new businesses within the 9 districts, both as one large network and across all the districts. You must also extend your influence with the 3 main factions of the city, the Council of Four, the Flaming Fist, and the Thieves Guild. Baldur's Gate is not only a city of industry in the Forgotten Realms, but a city of mortal danger. Mobs of monsters regularly attack the outer walls, or or from the harbor, forcing temporary alliances to fend off the incursions. Each family tries to take advantage of the crises, using them as stepping stones to advance their own agendas. When you place buildings, you place an influence cube on them to indicate your control. This also applies to special keeps, gates, and watchtowers, which are represented by miniatures with slots for your influence cubes, allowing you to see them grow in 3 dimensions. The actual WizKids listing. It's priced like a normal modern board game, not like a super expensive one filled with minis, but certainly not a small box game, $64.99. It just says Q3 2025. You can pre-order it right now. Does include, watchtower miniatures, keep miniatures, gate miniatures. Because those are the kind of minis people are excited about, is a bunch of gates and walls. So what does that look like? Can we look at the pictures here? The front cover looks gorgeous. Jeez. A game of construction, investment, and defense in Faerun's greatest city. All right, this was written by Baldur's Gate people then. I think many, many people in the Forgotten Realms would consider their city the greatest city. Okay, I'm looking at the cards and stuff right now. Let's see if they have... Okay, they only show the cards on the main website. I'm just going to go to Board Game Geek to actually see... I mean, there's the mini. I want to see, like, the board. Like, give me the hero shot of the board in action. All right, let's see. Board Game Geek has a bunch of images available. Okay, here we go. Yeah, give me... So this is just kind of user-submitted pictures. They got the scoring thing around the board. Okay, you get, like, a giant map of... It's not the most high-resolution picture. I mean, there's another one. So you're putting down the physical keeps and watchtowers. You've got your little cubes on there, which indicate that it's yours. And there's like tiles all over the board as well. So maybe still some like area control stuff going on. People are, I guess it's been at, okay, Origins, different game expos. Anybody doing high resolution screenshots here? Okay. I just don't know. Whoa, that one's too high resolution. How exciting you can be about putting walls and stuff down necessarily. The board map looks pretty spiff though. I do like a game where you just unfurl this giant fucking board and then you immediately start putting things on the board. That's pretty nifty. Yeah, the movie actually had like a lot of the monsters in there. The Honor Among Thieves movie, which shout out to that movie, man. The movie's good. Straight up good. No notes. Yeah, it looks fun. It's an interesting take from WizKids to be like, man, we have all these, our whole thing is miniatures. D&D is full of monsters. Let's make a game about putting down walls and watchtowers. So that concept feels like a bit of a miss, but if the game itself is really a cool like city builder thing where we're all vying over different controls and factions and stuff, then that could be pretty spiff. But definitely sounds, it seems like one of those games that we should probably wait for reviews on, if I'm being honest. I don't know. Let's see what else the designer has done. Matthew Dunstan has done Elysium, Guild of Merchant Explorers. Not personally familiar. Wow. He's got 93 games written as a designer. Good lord. Okay, well that's legit. Jeez. Interesting. Okay. So that is Builders of Baldur's Gate. I'm always interested in board games. You know, the shelf behind me is nothing but board games. So it's piqued my interest. Real quick, wanted to mention something that I got an email about, which was for Critical Role fans. For all of you cosplayers out there, I know there's so many of you who are into the cosplay scene. There's a book coming out called Critical Role, The Armory of Heroes. I believe this comes out later this month, either the end of this month or in August. Because we are already in July, called The Armor of Heroes, and it is a book that just covers the characters for the Critical Role campaigns, including Vox Machina, Mighty Nine, and the Ring of Brass. I think that's their... I'm not super into Critical Role, but I believe that's their campaign, like 1, 2, and 3, I think. And these provide... I go back and lose it. Basically like cosplay resources. So it's like all these different images of the characters. You know how to design all the outfits and stuff. I guess if you were a digital artist wanting to like mod a game with this stuff in there. It's also got like weapons, which is pretty cool. Like really cool, like high quality artwork, I guess. So specifically, they even say that, hey, this is for cosplayers. But I mean, if you're just interested in these characters and what they look like and stuff, this would be a pretty good resource for you. This is Critical Role: The Armory of Hero. That's what the cover of it looks like. Looks like a very like legit textbook kind of a thing. Okay, I think we're wrapping this up pretty soon. The only other thing I wanted to mention was a summer sale on D&D Beyond. I don't know, I feel like we're halfway through summer, but sure, let's do the summer sale. The Steam sale's on right now, so it's a good time for sales. This is a sale on a bunch of books from, I like that they specifically say compatible with 2024 core rules, which supposed to be all of their books are compatible. I don't know why those Keys and Journeys specifically has stuff from that. Did they do anything to make them compatible all of a sudden? I'm not sure. But because of that, I would certainly recommend all the adventure books. I would probably not necessarily recommend things like the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide or Xanathar's or Tasha's or anything at this point, because we're probably going to get, and if we're already seeing that from the Unearthed Arcana, right? We're seeing the new additions, the new versions and updated versions of all the subclasses and the player-focused content. So the stuff that would still be worth getting at this point would be any of these adventure books. Would still be worth getting because those you can convert to the new rule books. But with the old ones like Xanathar's and stuff, you probably didn't want to get those. But I mean, Tomb of Annihilation, $17. Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden is here. Also, it's not just, which I didn't realize that either, it's not just the Wizards published stuff. You got stuff from Cobalt Press, Tome of Beasts. You've got stuff from the Critical Role folks, Darrington Press. You've got stuff from the Matt Colville publishing label. You've got Ghostfire Gaming. You've got the Humblewood folks, Hit Point Press. So it's a lot of different stuff that you can grab on sale. Maybe not quite as sexy as the Steam summer sale, but I mean, if you're into picking up some books from the official sources, then they're available here. I assume these are digital copies that you get. The digital edition is only $10 when you choose digital plus physical. Okay, so you can get that version is on sale. Okay, so the sale price. All right, maybe it's just the digital one then. So that's the one that says that's listed summer sale. So I think these are specifically the digital copies that are included in for your D&D Beyond account is what's on sale. So if you're really using D&D Beyond for all your stuff, this would be useful to integrate all of that. But man, I need them to get on board with, you know, some kind of virtual tabletop thing or something to make me to make me even think about divorcing from Roll20 with all the shit I've got on there. Because otherwise it's not very attractive to me. I get that D&D Beyond is a really good character builder and obviously a repository of information and stuff, but if I've already got everything pumped into Roll20 now, I don't know. I was really hoping they would turn their VTT into something, but it doesn't look like it's gonna fucking happen. So can't say I'm terribly impressed with transforming all of my stuff into that, frankly. But you know all my opinions about stuff because I've done reviews of most of these things, so you can check those out. What about Sword Coast Adventurers Guide? It's like a book to expand on Sword Coast areas and lore. Yeah, maybe. I actually honestly haven't reviewed Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. But yes, there is stuff, and there is a source book stuff in there. I thought there's supposed to be, I don't want to sit here and Google search on the live stream, but I thought there was supposed to be another Sword Coast Adventurers Guide type book coming out as one of their first big source books in the post-2024 era. So I would look that up first before going backwards and getting one of these early ones. And frankly, these sale prices aren't good enough to just pick them up just because. If shit were like maybe 50% off or more, then I'd be like, yeah, go and pick it up and see if you can use it. But they're not. I think they're only like 30% off right now. So that's to me, that's not enough to pick something up just because it might be useful. You'd really want to be like, all right, I've been waiting for this to go on sale, and now I'm going to grab it, kind of a thing. That's my advice, anyway. All right, so I think that is going to do it for this week in D&D. We had a lot of good stuff to talk about. Honestly, I'm probably not going to be here again next week, unfortunately. We just have a lot of stuff. We have like a bunch of doctor's appointments for kids and stuff next Thursday that is kind of all lined up on the same day. So there's like a 90% chance I'm not going to be able to do this week in D&D next Thursday. And I'm also on vacation after today, starting this weekend. So what you will see from me next week, though, is we've got our next Patreon D&D campaign that evening, which means I will do a crafting stream on Monday. So I'll be back to doing a crafting for Dragonlance. So those of you who are players in that campaign, unfortunately, you cannot watch that. But I don't think I'll be here with it this week in D&D on Thursday, and then we will finally return to Alien RPG on the 11th next Friday, and then hopefully we can finish out that campaign this month and jump into whatever the hell is going on next. I gotta start figuring that out. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me. That's gonna be all the news for now. As always, big thank you to the patrons for helping to support this channel and support these live streams. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocide, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Love You Spuds, Warden, Udemo LC, Tom, the D Dogs, Marcus, Snuggy, Hugo, Jerry, Shay, Sasha, and John. And gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Lizard Lounge, Drome, Nathan Falsicator, Scott Rufus, Jerry Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support.